If you could go back in time to, say, September 2000 and tell someone about the attacks that would take place in New York and Washington the following year in 2001, and then you proceeded to explain the widespread changes to airport security that would follow, I think they might have a hard time believing you. They might say, "So you're saying that you can't bring a 150ml bottle of a liquid in your carry-on bag, but you can bring 3 50ml bottles of the same liquid. Do you have any idea how stupid that sounds? Security can rifle through people's bags? Travelers will be asked to remove their shoes in case they might have a bomb in them." Dude, you sound like a paranoid conspiracy theorist. They're going to treat 95-year-old granny in a wheelchair with just as much suspicion? Listen to yourself. You're a lunatic. No one would take that seriously. There's going to be body scanners where people are invasively x-rayed, and security will be able to see through a person's clothes down to their underwear. You're delusional. No one would ever consent to that. If they tried to implement something like that, there would be public uproar. It would never happen. And yet, as we know, not only are these kinds of security measures taking place every day in American airports, this kind of stuff has been happening all over the world in every airport, including in places that have never had a terrorist attack or would never be a major target for a terrorist attack. I remember the first time I went through airport security after 9/11, how demoralizing it was, and it still is, but above all, I was taken aback at how compliant everybody was, how the public just went along with it. I knew in my gut that this was wrong. They should not be allowed to treat us this way. But the problem was not how I felt. The problem was the herd mentality of the general public. People just went along with it. 9/11 was so traumatic and so terrifying to people that they were basically overwhelmed with fear and were happy to sacrifice freedom for more security. Now, I want to say, I have no problem with the idea of sky marshals on planes, for example. That's like having a security guard or a bouncer to a building. It makes sense to me. But a sky marshal is a very different thing to invasive airport security measures that emerged from the TSA. If you asked most members of the public if they would be willing to go back to pre-9/11 airport security standards, I think a lot of people would be very apprehensive about doing so and would adopt the attitude of, well, it's better to be safe than sorry. Maybe we'll just leave it the way it is. You never know. Please understand, this is exactly how I believe people now feel about the truly Orwellian social distancing policy that's emerged in just the last few weeks. It's been astonishing at how quickly people have adopted it. Now, as someone has said on my Computing Forever Facebook page, social distancing is really more like physical distancing, the separation of people from each other, which, as I will discuss, is actually not only unnecessary, but dangerous and very damaging to human health, mentally and physically. As Dr. Erickson explains,
the immune system is built by exposure to antigens, viruses, bacteria. When you're a little child crawling on the ground, putting stuff in your mouth, viruses and bacteria come in, you form an antigen-antibody complex, you form IgG, IgM. This is how your immune system is built. You don't take a small child, put them in bubble wrap in a room and say, go have a healthy immune system. This is immunology, microbiology 101. When you take human beings and you say, go into your house, clean all your counters, Lysol them down. You're going to kill 99% of viruses and bacteria. Wear a mask. Don't go outside. What does that do to our immune system? Our immune system is used to touching. We share bacteria, staphylococcal, streptococcal bacteria, viruses. We develop an immune response daily to this stuff. When you take that away from me, my immune system drops. As I shelter in place, my immune system drops. You keep me there for months, it drops more. And now I'm at home, hand washing vigorously, washing the counters, worried about things that are indeed what I need to survive. If you have a normal functioning immune system, you need interaction. When a child is in a womb, you're in this protected environment. When you come out, you have almost no immune system. You develop that through touching your mouth, touching your eyes, virus, bacteria, immune response, IgG, IgM. This is how you build a strong immune system.
You think people are worrying too much?
Of course they are, but that's from media telling them to. I am telling them sheltering in place decreases your immune system. And then as we all come out of shelter in place with a lower immune system and start trading viruses and bacteria, what do you think is going to happen? Disease is going to spike. And then you've got disease spike amongst a hospital system with furloughed doctors and nurses. This is not the combination we want to set up for a healthy society.
And as Professor Dolores Cahill explains.
So there is really no need for this kind of hype. And I would, in a way, challenge the media and challenge the Irish government that it's almost neglecting the population, you know, that people are dying unnecessarily because it was well known this SARS virus has been around for 17 years. Hydroxychloroquine is known as a treatment for decades, as well as it was used in China and all over the world before it came to Ireland. There is absolutely no need for the lockdown. And if we should be reopening the country within a week, and in that week, first of all, young people under, we'll say 50 or people under 50 should just be mingling now, ready to go back to work in a week.
Well,
and people should.
When you say mingling, do you mean no social distancing, just back to normal, none of this?
Yeah, there's absolutely no need. I would challenge anyone to say there is no need for social distancing. There are only 3 organisms that are transmitted in that way, and it's TB and smallpox and Ebola. So this one is not. This one is transmitted if a droplet is on a door handle, but absolutely. And the other thing is that masks, if people actually have the symptoms, they should wear a mask. But if you're like me, you had it, there is no need to wear a mask. But what a mask does, it's entirely the wrong thing. It actually reduces the oxygen supply to you. So it actually, everybody has latent viruses within their body. And because you're under oxygen stress, it allows viruses that were latent, because you're under stress, it decreases your immune system. So there is no need for wearing masks, only if you have symptoms. And if you have symptoms, you should just stay at home for the week, and then you will be immune. There is absolutely no basis for social distancing. And I just like to say there's a lot of thing about this second spike, right? So the more people that are immune. So if young people under 50 or under 60 who are healthy go out and just mingle, right? Even if they don't go to school, but they just mix socially and, you know, and meet their friends. There is no case in the world, except for people who are chronically ill with underlying lung diseases, that a young person has died. And also young people do not give it to adults. Adults give it to young people. But how you stop a virus is that you get a percentage of the population to become immune. And then there's like enough people that the virus circulation stops. So that within 10 days, if the students go out, you know, tomorrow, literally whatever day we have, the 12th of May, and mingle, and I would challenge the government, I would take responsibility for this decision, right? They have to take a leadership role and come out. And people under 50 will say for this week, the schools are just social interactions for kids can go back from next week. And people who are over 80 or elderly should be taking their vitamins. GPs could stock up on hydroxychloroquine, and then over the next 3 or 4 weeks, the people that have underlying conditions can mingle. Ireland should be saying we're open for business from the 1st of June. We should open our hotels and our restaurants. There is absolutely no requirement for social distancing. And if you boost your immune system, there will be no second spike. And also the number of cases, I think, as I mentioned earlier, Dave, is actually people who are immune for life.
On that last point, Professor Cahill, who has also been interviewed on Gran Torino's channel, she's clarified several points from her interview with me, including the point about how immunity from COVID-19 works for life. Here's an excerpt.
And then just to come on to the question about immune for life, which people don't seem to understand anymore, which 20 or 30 years ago when we were in university and in secondary school, people were very aware of the immune system. So I might just give an example of chickenpox. You know, to give people an example that chickenpox is a virus, and that people would, you know, previously will say in my generation and older, the chickenpox would come around, you know, to Ireland or whatever, or to a particular, you know, county or school. And if people remember, it would only come around maybe every 2 or 3 years. And then children would get the chickenpox. And then they would be ill for maybe 10 days. And so to just explain about immune for life is that after those 10 days, you know, the children, like we all did, became well again. And that's an example where you boost your immune system. The body knows the virus is there. For the first few days, you feel very unwell, while it takes about 7 to 11 days for your body to develop these IgG antibodies. They develop T cell response and IgM response. But those antibodies are exquisitely mature after about 11 days. And you can imagine that the virus is like a football, and the body makes antibodies all over that football. You know, they only bind a small part of it. And some parts of viruses elicit more stronger antibodies and antibodies that are good to clear. And eventually, after around 10 or 11 days, so you mightn't be sick for the first 3 or 4 days, then you would be probably unwell with, say, with chickenpox for a week. Mm-hmm. But then what immunity for life is that you then have made antibodies, you have cleared the virus from your system, and you are well again, and you are immune for life.
For life. Can I now clarify with you just my understanding so that I'm getting this straight going forward? The difference between COVID-19 and the other SARS virus, as I understand it, is the addition of these 12 nucleotides, which we could discuss are not naturally occurring. But that, and what that means is it confers an easier receptivity, or you can be infected with COVID-19 more easily than you could have with the other family of SARS viruses. However, does it mean that if you had, let's say you had the SARS virus in 2003 and you developed antibodies and you were immune to that, does that automatically mean you are also immune to COVID-19? Given that the key difference is the addition of those 12 nucleotides?
That's a very good question. So I'll just ask Rowan to put up the slide with the circle, if that's all right, and the different colors, the pink and the yellow. It might be a little
key,
bit key,
I think, for me anyway, in my meager understanding.
That the one there, Dolores?
Yeah. That's it, exactly. And maybe I just wanted to point out one thing for the chickenpox, Fiona, just to finish that off real quick, if that's okay. What I wanted to say to people is that, when you're immune for life as a younger person, maybe up until you are about 80 or so, you are immune from the chickenpox. But chickenpox is an example that people will understand that you can have what's called a latent virus, L-A-T-E-N-T. And that the virus can stay in your body, and while you are well nourished and have vitamins and no stress, you will be healthy. But some people might remember that they get shingles.
Yes.
And so shingles is an example of when a virus reactivates, and that generally happens if you're not eating well, or you're stressed, or your immune system, kind of wears out a little bit when you are 90 or 100. And that's why some older people can get shingles. So essentially, just to say to people, chickenpox, you'd be sick for a week, you would be immune for life. But I just chose that example because it means that you can have the virus latent in your system, and if you put it under stress. And I just wanted to mention that because that's the reason why I would be saying if you have this antivirus or flu-like symptoms, you should really stay at home. And then once you recover, but that wearing the mask actually is not a good thing. And if you wear the mask and you're essentially healthy, that will actually cause so much stress on your immune system because you're not getting enough oxygen, that all the latent viruses that you have in your body will be reactivated, and that you would have accumulated in your life. And then you would have those symptoms again. So that's why it's actually not good. And then the other important thing is that before vaccinations, the world had evolved magically that these viruses, we almost co-evolved mammalian life with the viruses. And to remain healthy, it's actually exposure to viruses in a normal world without vaccines actually boosts your immune system and keeps you healthy. So back before vaccines, the elderly population would not be getting shingles at all, even at 70, 80, 90, because they would be exposed to their grandchildren who would get them. And that's actually what nature is doing, is preventing everybody getting autoimmune diseases at all ages, because the virus magically circulates around the world. Every generation of children get it every 2 or 3 years, but actually them getting it re-immunizes, re-exposes all people in every decade in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, all the way along to 100. And their immune system is actually healthily stimulated. So they actually, in the elderly, before the vaccinations, would not be getting chronic autoimmune diseases like arthritis, because their immune system. So if you don't have this circulation of chickenpox and other naturally occurring viruses, then people are much more prone to autoimmune diseases, because their immune system doesn't have a natural microbiome or virome to attack. So that's why it's actually healthy to go out and mingle and to be exposed to viruses. It actually, when I was saying yesterday, It boosts your immune system, because otherwise your immune system attacks your own body. And when your immune system has nothing naturally to fight against, it then attacks your own tissue. And why it's so confusing is that children, when they're under 10 or teenagers, they are getting the immune disease that they would previously have got at 80. So if you have an issue with a toxin like mercury or aluminium, and you can't excrete it, like a lot of boys are 4 times more prevalent, or girls get multiple diseases like juvenile arthritis or multiple sclerosis that have been shown to be associated with certain components of the vaccine.
It's almost as if social distancing is designed to weaken our immune systems by preventing our collective exposure to a healthy mix of bacteria and viruses. One wonders. Though what Professor Cahill and Dr. Erickson are saying makes logical and scientific sense, it's concerning that this is actually difficult to explain to the general public. The public are spooked. They're being told to keep a 2-meter distance from each other, and they're complying because they've been now conditioned and kind of hypnotized by fear-mongering from the mainstream media, and ironically enough, engaging in this physical distancing is the very policy that will make them more sick.
But it's not so easy to track, because different teenagers get different autoimmune diseases or chronic fatigue or POTS. But what's happening is that they are getting the diseases, the autoimmune diseases, that if they had lived to be 90 is what they would have got then. But because those viruses are not circulating naturally, and because the aluminium and other toxins in the vaccines are irritating their immune system, they are becoming sick.
This is a phenomenal discussion, and one you have to check out. It's linked below. Please watch that video and share it. It's on Gran Torino's channel, and he's also told me that you have his permission to download that video and re-upload it everywhere, and make sure as many people as possible see it. So, ironically enough, all of this recent talk in the media and by politicians about the handshake going away, it's actually disastrous for us. Never before have human beings attempted to legislate for the exact proximity distance that we should be permitted to be from another human being. And I'm worried that some very sinister mass behavior modification and social engineering psychological manipulation is taking place, and at a foundational level, human behavior is being altered. On one hand, it makes some kind of intuitive sense to people to stay away from other people, keeping one's 2-meter distance because you don't want to get the virus, right? And yet, if you do that, you'll be exposed to none of the useful bacteria and viruses that help to keep a healthy immune system. And then, when an opportunistic virus comes along, you'll get really sick. If we cut out all physical contact in public, distancing ourselves, no longer rubbing shoulders on the bus, or in the pub, or the sports stadium, or down the street, whatever. If people stop hugging, or kissing on the cheeks when they meet each other, no more handshakes, etc., we're going to weaken our immune systems and then bring about the very widespread kinds of diseases and illnesses we were seeking to avoid in the first place. So this should make perfect sense. After all, we are mammals, social animals, and we evolved to be in contact with each other in groups, in herds, etc. We can observe this in all other animals. We're not supposed to be solitary. Now, I understand a small percentage of you might be antisocial or live like hermits to one degree or another, but I'm speaking about humanity in general, obviously. The dangerous component to these government mandates around social distancing is that during a crisis like after 9/11, people want to believe that decisive action is being taken by their leaders. This is despite the fact that we now know that this virus is no more fatal than a seasonal influenza, and yet the public at large, who only consume mainstream media fear-mongering content, seem to believe that this is the Spanish flu meets the bubonic plague. This has created confusion. Now, confusion is actually a really big problem, because when the masses are confused, they're actually easier to propagandize. As I say, people want to see strong displays of decisive action from governments, regardless as to whether those actions are correct or not, it seems. Social distancing and lockdown, temperature checks when entering buildings, contact tracing, tracking apps, removal of all basic freedoms and liberties, police checkpoints, heavy-handed policing, arrests and snitching for people flouting the rules, the submissive follower instinct in the public is actually somehow comforted by all of this, because of the natural human instinct to follow strong leaders. Recently, Paul Joseph Watson rightly observed the absurdity of the idea of a mandatory vaccine, because apparently the human immune system just stopped working in 2020. The reality is the global oligarchs seeking to control more and more of our lives never intended for life to return to normal. Social distancing, or rather physical distancing, is here to stay, apparently. It's the new normal. Well, if it becomes the new normal, it won't be just because of the politicians, the media, or the social engineers. It will be because the populace willfully went along with it like sheep, because they offered no resistance. And if it becomes the new normal, they're going to be sheep with much lower immune systems who get sick quite often, and then they won't understand why. So imagine a scenario in the near future. They'll have done everything that they've been told to do to keep themselves safe. They're washing their hands frantically, like they've got germophobic obsessive compulsive disorder. They're treating everyone on the street like a pariah, keeping their distance, and treating everyone with fear and suspicion. Isn't that what they're supposed to do? After all, social distancing does lower social trust and the bonds of community, solidarity, and cohesion. It's a divide and conquer tactic, and the public are falling for it. Also, they've given up handshakes, despite this being a human custom for thousands of years, which also had a secondary benefit of transferring bacteria and viruses to strengthen collective herd immunity. They've given up hugging, and all public spaces and workplaces have been heavily modified to look like some kind of 1984 dystopian science fiction film. Plexiglass screens, temperature checks, constant invasive health monitoring. I recently mentioned a Quebec school in Canada, and the guidance as to how that school is going to operate makes it sound more like a prison camp for children, where their outside time is greatly restricted and they sit all day in one chair. That's extremely unhealthy. That's going to give you deep vein thrombosis. I mean, what kind of state of mind are they going to be in? They're going to be fearful and distrustful and traumatized by the prospect of contact with another child for fear of disease. This is abusive. People wearing masks, thinking it's protecting them, and they'll queue for up to an hour outside of a grocery store because they think that's helping. And yet, they'll still wonder, why am I getting sick so often? I guess viruses just suddenly got really bad all of a sudden. I guess we now live with regular Spanish flus. I guess we have to take mandatory vaccines now. What did human beings ever do for tens of thousands of years before Big Pharma came along? The media will also tell them that the only way to restore the economy, which this manufactured crisis has crashed, of course, is to take the vaccine. Because that way, all people in all industries can return to work again. And business people needing to travel in and out of the country will be able to do that again once everybody has the vaccine. They'll be led to believe that only vaccines can protect them and keep them safe and healthy. I do, however, believe that at that point, there will come a kind of dawning on the public, and this realization will be backed up by the data and by research from scientists and doctors who will come forward and explain the devastating societal impact of social distancing and the needless suffering it will have caused. So, though I'm cautiously optimistic that this dystopian social distancing can be refuted and reversed, the issue is the long-term damage and psychological trauma it will cause. And children could be especially made hyper-aware of germs in their formative years. This could have significant consequences in later life, because to me, the hypervigilance that people are showing by social distancing, it's almost become a kind of superstition. Here was a video from China that I found deeply troubling. Now, to what extent do you think will Western nations and public schools adopt this kind of hysteria? By the way, someone recently sent me this video on YouTube, and it's from a channel called It's Some Time, and the video is called "What if Social Distancing is Made Permanent Worldwide?"
Social distancing is deliberately increasing the physical space between people to avoid spreading illness.
Ironically, it'll do more to create illness, as we've already discussed.
If social distancing was made permanent worldwide, firstly, social distancing and dating do not go well together. The way people date will change forever.
Humanity would become a parody of itself if social distancing comes between human beings and the deeper need for pair bonding.
Thirdly, more and more cameras will be installed in public places to enforce social distancing. Privacy will take a back seat.
Literally describing a police state that's about as dystopian as the movie Equilibrium. Social distancing prevents human beings from living like human beings. It prevents them from living a natural and authentic human life.
Lastly, rock concerts, marathons, festivals will have to issue new guidelines to remain within the gambit of law.
Which we're already seeing. Fan pods have been suggested at concerts, which is where audiences will have to huddle together in small groups, and there will be temperature checks on the way in.
But on the flip side, with social distancing enforced, contagious diseases may soon fade away worldwide.
Completely nonsense. As Dr. Erickson pointed out, opportunistic viruses will exploit our weakened immune systems.
Do you want your immune system built, or do you want it not built? The building blocks of your immune system is virus and bacteria, end of story. That's how you build it.
And there's normal bacteria and normal flora. There's normal bacteria and normal flora that we have to be exposed to. Bacteria and viruses that are not virulent are our friends. They protect us against bad bacteria and bad viruses. So right now, if you look at Dr. Erickson's skin or my skin, we have strep, we have staph. All staph isn't bad, all strep isn't bad. They protect us against opportunistic infections. That's why when a baby comes out of the womb for the first 3 to 6 months, they're extremely vulnerable to opportunistic infections, which is why when we see a little baby in the ER with fever that's 1 month old, you do a spinal tap, you do a chest x-ray, you do blood cultures, you do urine cultures. But if you had a fever, I wouldn't do that for you. Why? Because that baby does not have the normal bacteria and flora from the community, whereas you do, because you've interacted with, you've gone to the gas station, you've gone to Home Depot. That's the difference. Normal flora, we all need normal flora. What Dr. Erickson's saying is when you are self-isolating at home for 2 or 3 months, you lose that normal flora. So I guarantee when we reopen, there's going to be a huge amount of illness that's going to be rampant because our immune systems have weakened. And that's just basic immunology and virology.
With everybody wearing face masks, contagious diseases may soon fade away worldwide.
Again, this is just powerfully unscientific.
Fourthly, dating with face masks will probably be awkward to start with, but people will slowly but surely get used to it.
And that's the problem, isn't it? Just like after 9/11 with airport security. People just slowly but surely get used to it. They start to rationalize it. This is not a world I'd ever want to get used to. By the way, if you want a bit of a laugh, just look at this photograph that someone sent me from Thailand. So you have people queuing to get on the train, and they're queuing for the train social distancing style. And then when they get on the train, they're all packed together like sardines. Does this make any kind of sense to you? I now want to dig into the psychological effects of social distancing and reduced physical contact between human beings. I think we were tipped off to this dystopian future pretty early on with an MIT article that read, "We are not going back to normal. Social distancing is here to stay for much more than a few weeks. It will upend our way of life, in some ways forever, over my dead body. But regardless as to how all of this social distancing is pushed on people, and regardless as to how much they go along with it, the consequences will be felt eventually. This article is from The Guardian from 2018. The article is called Let's Touch: Why Physical Connection Between Human Beings Matters. Touch can be used as a tool for communicating empathy, even resulting in an analgesic pain-killing effect. To combat loneliness, let's set up coffee dates instead of screen time. Ironically, we're now being told to live as pod people, basically, isolated from each other, alone, in front of screens, which are now supposed to replace the basic necessity of human contact and physical contact. What therapist would honestly advise a person suffering from depression to spend more time alone and socially distant from their friends and family, given the overwhelming and categoric data and research and evidence that proves that human beings require physical contact for the development of trust, empathy, and good mental and physical health, etc. We humans aren't meant to live in isolation. Loneliness has been proven to cause serious repercussions, leading to illness and a 50% increased risk of early death. In her New York Times Modern Love essay, writer Michelle Fiordaliso makes the case for unexpected moments of intimacy between strangers. Touch solidifies something, an introduction, a solution, a feeling, empathy, she writes. It turns out that these moments of connection, while fleeting, have a lasting impact on our well-being. One study published earlier this year showed that touch can be used as a tool for communicating empathy, resulting in an analgesic pain-killing effect. This ability to synchronize with others is crucial for social development, a fact that has garnered the attention of psychologists and scientists in recent years. Here's another article from wired.co.uk from 2017 by Dasher Keltner. The Science of Touch: Why Physical Contact Can Make You Happier and More Successful. Touch can deactivate stress regions and was used by primates to form alliances. Tactile communication involves a complex communicative system that has been shaped by millions of years of mammalian evolution. It includes the human hand, a 5-digit dexterous wonder which evolved to gesture, clasp, hold, use tools, and touch. Touch is first processed by the skin, an organ made up of billions of cells, which sends neurochemical signals to a large region of the cortex, the somatosensory cortex, which brings to consciousness the precise nature of each tactile contact with the outer world, whether it is friend or foe, potential lover or lech, toxin or harmless element. Early clues as to how tactile contact is a foundation of the good life were found in studies of non-human primates, which spend upwards of 15% of their waking hours grooming one another. They do so not to find nits or gnats or curb the spread of disease, but instead to form alliances, in particular in trades of grooming for food. Primatologist Franz de Waal first made this point, noting that chimps systematically share food with those that groomed them earlier in the day. Touch is the basis of that primordial act of kindness, sharing food with non-kin. As humans evolved into the most social of primates, touch became an ever richer language, enabling moral ties with others. Touch is a powerful direct means by which we give to others. Empirical studies find that the right kind of touch, the reassuring pat on the back or warm embrace, elicits in the recipient the release of oxytocin, a neurochemical that promotes trust and cooperation. A soft touch to the arm elicits activation in the orbitofrontal cortex, a region of your frontal lobes that signals expected rewards of an action. Warm, friendly touches of appreciation make others feel esteemed, valued, and good. How often have you felt inspired or appreciated or encouraged or connected by simply a pat on the shoulder, a reassuring hug, or someone warmly clasping your hand, or if you're Italian or French, a kiss on the cheek from someone when you greet them? Is this now taboo? Is this non-essential human interaction or something? Are we saying that an essential part of human interaction and interactivity now is suddenly off limits to us? Physical contact is a source of positive, mood-boosting energy to human beings and a vital part of communication and bonding between peoples. Can we see now why it's being taken away from us? The new normal, they call it, this social distancing. There will be nothing normal about human beings if this social distancing and aversion to human contact becomes commonplace. We will be a deeply troubled and sick people. Warm, friendly patterns of touch also calm down the recipient's neurophysiology of stress. In one study, simply holding the hand of a loved one deactivated stress-related regions of the brain when anticipating going through a stressful experience. That made me think of all of the elderly people who recently died in nursing homes alone because of the lockdown and the social distancing, and they were probably afraid, and they died with no family or loved ones around them.
Who was there to hold their hand in their final hours?
Researchers at Berkeley have sought to pinpoint how touch may be a language of moral connection. In a study led by Matthew Hertenstein, 2 strangers came to the lab and were separated by a barrier, preventing all forms of communication, except touch through a small hole. One participant stuck their arm through a hole in the barrier, at which time the individual on the other side attempted to communicate 12 different emotions, one at a time, with brief touches to the other person's forearm. The emotions included gratitude, sympathy, and love, quintessential moral sentiments. After each touch, the recipient guessed what emotion was just communicated. In this study, subjects could detect gratitude, sympathy, and love about 55 to 60% of the time. This shows that as the day unfolds, we can rely on touch to convey gratitude, sympathy, and love with brief touches. Or at least we could before 2020. But of course, the lockdown and social distancing were never about saving lives. They were always about control, which is what we now know, because we know the data models, death certificates, and information about the virus and how it works is nonsense, and we know the people behind all of this and what their real agenda is. And so it now seems obvious that government policies enacted against us were designed to destroy the very natural bonds between us as people, to strip an essential piece of our humanity from us, to isolate us, make us feel alone, helpless, hopeless, and detached, to place us in a psychological prison of fear as we desperately claw for safety from an unseen foe. And in this desperate scramble for safety from the illness, we turn away from the very thing that would actually save us, nature's built-in cure, herd immunity, which can only be achieved by being close to one another. Also, the media and the so-called experts on TV, they never say anything about getting plenty of vitamins or maintaining a healthy and balanced diet along with exercise. No, instead, the very people who recommend that our governments take away our rights and force healthy people into quarantine and isolation are the very people who stand to gain financially from providing the snake oil solution they're offering us. They also gain by making us sick, by encouraging us to weaken our immune systems through lack of contact with other people. Social distancing also by itself will create increased stress levels due to the lack of physical contact and the constant stress hormone buildup in our systems from the ongoing sense of apprehension or dread that people now have from being so paranoid and afraid of touching each other and being within close proximity to each other. Here's another article. This is from greatergood.berkeley.edu. Why physical touch matters for your well-being. Physical contact seems to be declining in modern life. But what happens when we lack human touch? Well, this article was written in 2018, and obviously things are now a lot worse when it comes to human touch. Earlier this year, Tiffany Field, head of the Touch Research Institute at the University of Miami's Miller School of Medicine, traveled to different airports in Florida to watch people interacting. A researcher who has studied touch for more than 4 decades, Field made a shocking discovery. Nobody was touching each other. Everyone was on their phone. Well, that's just very sad. I think social media has been really detrimental to touch, Field told me. Being on your phone is distancing people physically from each other. It used to be in airports, you'd see people hugging and napping on each other. Now they're just not touching. The science of touch came of age in the mid-1990s when two scientists traveled to Romania to examine the sensory deprivation of children in understaffed orphanages. The touch-deprived children, they found, had strikingly lower cortisol and growth hormone levels for their age group. From the time we are in the womb through our elderly years, touch plays a primary role in our development and physical and mental well-being. New studies on touch continue to show the importance of physical contact in early development, communication, personal relationships, and fighting disease. Although the therapeutic benefits have become increasingly clear, Field argues that thanks to no-touch policies in schools and the isolating effects of cell phones and computers, Americans are touching each other less. In the conversation below, Field shares the latest research on the importance of touch and what happens when we don't touch each other. And now people seem terrified to go anywhere near each other. So it says, JJ, what do we know about hugging? TF. They injected a cold germ into these people who were in the study, and those who had more hugs had a better immune response to the cold virus. Now, isn't that very interesting? And then there are some studies showing that if you get hugged by your partner before a stressful condition like giving a speech or doing math problems, people do better. Performance is better if they've been hugged by a partner before the stress. Well, I'm going to conclude this video here and say that once again, you have my permission, in fact, I implore you, to download this video that you're watching and share it everywhere that you can on any platforms that you can think of. And also, email this video to people. Show it on your laptop or tablet or on your phone to as many people as you can, family or your neighbors. Also, email the interview video that I did with Professor Dolores Cahill called Debunking the Narrative, and also the one that I mentioned with Gran Torino. She did a fantastic talk with him as well, and with Fiona Marie Flanagan. Get those videos to as many people as you can. Maybe email them to your doctor. See what he or she thinks. Now, my final thoughts. The people we were. Well, they were human beings who lived an authentic human life. The people that we are becoming are people who are slowly being conditioned to act in an entirely anti-human way that is destructive to us and deeply damaging to our mental and physical health, and it's a way that undermines group solidarity, social trust, and cohesion. As human beings, we cannot allow our fear of death to be weaponized against us. There are many ways that a person can die, but there is only one way to live a meaningful and authentic life, and that is to live it as freely as possible. However, I believe the new world that the oligarchs wish to create for us will be too intolerable to last. They want absolute control, absolute order, and complete oversight of every aspect of our lives. Now, for us to stop them and wake up the populace, it's going to require a lot of hard work from all of us. We have to keep pushing out the content, and people have to find elaborate ways of broadcasting it into the real world and reaching normies. So get together and connect with like-minded folks in the real world offline, and also subscribe to me over on BitChute. It's not as polished as YouTube, but it is a free speech platform, and Ray Vahi has been peerless throughout all of this. He is 100% committed to free speech. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.